welcome everybody to our Walking with Jesus show, where we delve into the life and times of Jesus Christ. I'm Teri Angel, here with Lily Ortega, who will be translating this for us. It's early in the morning here. Welcome, Lily.
Hi, Terry. Good morning. Buenos días.
And we also have Dr. Ruth Anderson with us today. You'll be hearing her, not necessarily seeing her. Kind of like when God speaks, right? We don't see him, it's just we know he's there. So we are going to take a moment and share this broadcast out. And as we're doing so, if you are finding it and coming in, just let us know you're here. Just say a quick hello and we will recognize your presence. We're excited about today's broadcast.
Buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos a el podcast Caminando con Jesús. Vamos a tomar ahorita un tiempo para compartir este programa con la audiencia que habla inglés y con la audiencia que habla español. Sean muy bienvenidos a este programa. Ahorita aquí con nosotros está Terry y también está Ruth Anderson, y ella va a estar aquí con nosotros compartiendo. Bienvenidos.
Thank you so much, Lily. I am so appreciative of Lily for doing the translation of this into Spanish for anyone that maybe needs a little deeper understanding of what we're saying instead of just in one language. Good morning, Billy. My sister Billy is with us this morning. All right, so I have it shared out and just asking that you all do the same when you come in. Just hit the share button because we've got, I think, an exciting topic today. We're going to talk about what did Jesus eat? What was it like being there on earth in the times of Jesus and what was available? Because pretty much there wasn't a takeout menu. So it's like they were all at the mercy of whatever was available in their area. So after Lily gets back from sharing, we will start with looking at some of those questions that you all have put forth to us. And one of those was the meals. And I'm just curious. I have a very curious mind. So if it was me living in that day and time, what would that be like? And we've got a little glimpse of some of the things, but I don't know, I was thinking this morning, did they make a crude version of pizza? Because pizza seems to be one of our favorite all over foods.
I was thinking maybe they had, instead of Uber Eats, they had like Luther Eats, and Luther brought it in on a camel or something. You never know.
You never know how they got their food transported. And if they had food from other areas, other parts of the world that were brought in. I mean, there were boats, right?
Right.
So they had means of transporting anything that they wanted to bring in. Good morning, Jennifer. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so Lily, whenever you get back, if you will start us off with sharing the opening, and we'll call in our angels
Yes.
to help us understand this more fully.
Yes. I'm trying to get back to the screen. Well, I don't know if I can, but I am going to translate what you said. Terry nos está diciendo que el día de hoy vamos a explorar cómo es que Jesús y en sus tiempos comían, cómo era la alimentación en esos tiempos, de dónde traían la comida. Entonces el día de hoy vamos a explorar ese importante tema acerca de la alimentación y tenemos mucha curiosidad de saber cómo es que Jesús comía y qué es lo que comía.
Thank you for that, Lily. And We have some more people joining in, so welcome everyone that's coming in and finding the broadcast this morning. Not sure who this is. Virel? Welcome. All right, and Andrea is here. So my curious mind just wants to know what the cuisine was. What did people live on? Because that's, at that time especially, that was the reason to eat, was to keep your body going, to keep the nourishment and keep the body alive. It wasn't necessarily for pleasure, like we have foods that are comfort foods or foods that are go-to foods. But what did they have there in that part of the world that was readily available? And we know from some of the things that are told, the stories and the writings, that fish was pretty much readily available because they were on the part of the world where it's the
Sea of Galilee.
Sea of Galilee was. And so there were lots of fish that they had access to. And there's stories about the fish multiplying, when they were like wondering how they were going to feed a big crowd. And Jesus had no problem digging in and multiplying the food that was brought out, like the fish and the bread. But how did they fix the
Let Lily
fish?
talk.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Lily.
Something that comes to my mind, Terry, is about um, the simplicity of food eaten at his time. Like it's kind of related to what you mentioned because I can imagine it's very different to the way we eat now. Um, and also, like we have been talking about sacred relationships, right? Like pretty much everything that we have talked about the sacred relationship with people, with animals. And now I wonder if eating was a sacred act as well.
Mm.
Anyway, I am going to translate.
Okay.
Terry nos está diciendo que en esos tiempos nos gustaría saber cómo era la cocina, cómo es que se nutrían, porque en esos tiempos no era tanto comer por placer, era como para traer nutrición al cuerpo. En estos tiempos es un poco diferente, comemos mucho por placer, lo que nos gusta, a veces comemos comida más nutritiva que nos nutre el cuerpo, pero también hay mucha comida, como se llama comfort food, que es la comida que no tiene tanta nutrición, pero que se nos antoja, por decirlo así. En esos tiempos había pescado, había pescadería disponible por el mar de Galilea y había en una ocasión, si sabemos la historia, que Jesús multiplicó el pescado para alimentar a una gran cantidad de gente. Y algo que yo le estaba preguntando a Terry, que se me viene a la mente, es cómo era la simplicidad de la comida en esos tiempos y que sí el comer era un acto sagrado. Hemos hablado de relaciones sagradas que tenemos con personas y con animales. Entonces, a mí me gustaría saber si el comer era un acto sagrado también.
Thank you for that, Lily. Okay, so I love your thought, Lily, about it being a sacred relationship with food. And I think Jesus was teaching us by example. That's what I'm getting. Like, don't just eat to fill an empty spot. Don't just eat because it's there, but to really think about what you're putting in your stomach, to feed the body. I can't remember. I think it was Rhonda Byrne the gal that wrote The Secret, she wrote a book about being grateful. And one of the things I appreciated about it was you give gratitude for every bit of the meal that's in front of you. You give gratitude for the seed that was planted, the people that harvested, the people that cooked the food, the people that served it, if you're eating at a place where you're being served. So, not just looking at it as this is going to be good for my body, this is going to fuel me, but looking at it with every bit of whatever goes into making that meal or preparing that particular food. And I really appreciated that. And I still try to remember to do that when I'm sitting down to a meal, is thinking about everything that went into the preparation of that meal. And that made a huge impact on me personally, to not just, oh, let me just grab a bag of chips, but to really think about what's going into the body and the sacred relationship, like you said, with it, which would be the gratitude and the acknowledgement of where that food actually came from. And I think that's why we needed to look at, what did Jesus do? Did he bless the food before he ate it?
Mhm. And it's interesting because um, I I was thinking about what you just said yesterday when I was tuning into food, thinking about food. I came across gratitude, exactly gratitude, being grateful for what we eat, and thinking about where it came from. And then I remember that when I was a Montessori teacher, um, well, the children who were 3 to 6 years old, they prepare the snacks for the day. So they cut the whatever we have, fruit, vegetables, and whatever we had prepared. They helped. They were part of it. But also we were getting them involved in where it came from. So if there is a garden, like now there are farm schools in Montessori is getting really expanded.
Mhm.
And anyway, so we wanted to teach the children where the food comes from. So there, if there was a garden, they could collect the food, the vegetables, the fruits, and then bring them to the table and then prepare the food. But also we had almost like a ritual. It was not called a ritual, but it felt like a ritual to prepare the table to eat. So we had a tablecloth, a very pretty tablecloth, and then they helped to bring all the plates and the silverware and everything. So they were pretty involved in the whole process. So I remember that, and I remember we bless our food before we ate. um anyway, I just remember that, Terry. So I'm going to translate now.
Okay.
um, Terry nos está diciendo que la importancia de la relación sagrada con la comida, el hecho de no nada más comer para satisfacer esa necesidad de comer, ese espacio vacío en nuestro estómago, sino también alimentar y nutrir el cuerpo. Terry se acuerda de una persona llamada Rhonda Byrne, que ella habla mucho de esto, de la gratitud y de tener ese agradecimiento por toda la gente que contribuyó a que tenemos este plato enfrente de nosotros, a la gente que plantó las semillas, a la gente que cosechó esa fruta y verdura hasta que llegó a nuestro plato. Entonces dice que no nada más pensar en que este platillo va a ser bueno para mí o me va a satisfacer o va a llenar ese espacio vacío en mi estómago, sino verlo como de dónde viene esta comida, quiénes fueron las personas que lo trajeron a esta mesa para que yo pueda disfrutarlo. Entonces, cuando ella empezó a tener ese proceso de agradecer antes de comer y de pensar en todo lo que involucra tener este plato en nuestra mesa, hizo un cambio y un impacto en la manera en la que ella come. Entonces, es el pensar qué es lo que entra a nuestro cuerpo, ser más conscientes de cada cosa que comemos, perdón, que va a nuestro cuerpo. Y dice Terry que Jesús se tomaba el tiempo para bendecir sus alimentos antes de comer. Y yo le estaba platicando de que cuando yo trabajaba en una escuela Montessori, enseñábamos a los niños a no nada más partir la fruta y verdura que comían, porque ellos ayudaban, los niños de 3 a 6 años ayudaban partiendo la comida, pero también los involucrábamos en el proceso de dónde venía y si había un pequeño jardín vegetal afuera, los llevábamos para recolectar las frutas y verduras que ellos iban a comer. Y también teníamos una especie de ritual a la hora de comer, donde ellos ponían un mantel muy bonito, ellos traían la vajilla, ellos traían los tenedores, el cuchillo, los vasos, y eran parte de todo el proceso. Y también bendecíamos la comida antes de comer.
Thank you, Lily. So there's two directions I want to go, but first I want to ask Ruth to share a thought about the sacredness, the honoring of the food itself, which I feel like Jesus really showed us that.
Yeah, well, I guess what was coming to my mind was the sacredness of the foods, the fruits, the vegetables, animal meat, because God, I mean, and I don't eat much meat, but God gave us animal meat for our nourishment, the grains in its purest form, and the energy that comes off of foods when they're in its purest form. I just have to believe that that's more nourishing for us than the ultra processed foods.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, we developed this thing called organic than just regular grown food. It's more pure. I think there's more care taken to grow organic food or to bring it forth, and it lasts longer.
Less chemicals.
There's not the chemicals, there's not the sprays, and to me it tastes better. That may be a mental thing, I don't know, but I enjoy knowing that that food was taken care of more so than just a regular growing of food or taking care of animals. And I like that you mentioned the animals, because that was one of my thoughts was, did Jesus eat meat or was it only vegetables? But in doing some research on that, there were instances where it showed that Jesus did eat things like lamb. I can't remember what else, goat maybe, I can't remember what all was mentioned, cheese. But I think he wasn't a pure vegetarian. I think it was a matter of what was needed to feed that many people that were there with him when he was sharing his ministry. So and when I tune in and ask, I'm like, yeah, there had to be enough to feed that crowd. And so meat was one of the things that would extend a meal, like making stew or soups or something like that. And they used every bit of what was sacrificed as far as animals. They used all of it. Laughing because Ruth just took a trip overseas to Asia, and I think they also use every part of whatever animal they are preparing the food from. Yeah. So that was such a very interesting thought of, you know, was there meat involved in their diet? And I got a yes, that there was.
Yes. Terry, I was, as you were talking, I was, yeah, I was thinking about like this, for example, like many people are searching for what we call perfect diet. So, which is not what I mean is it doesn't have to be that perfect diet, I would say. But what qualities should we seek in our relationship with food so it
Mhm.
brings nourishment rather than stress or fear? Um, I, for example, also, how do we know that we are feeding versus consuming? So, this topic about food is not only like talking about physical nourishment, it's also some kind of a spiritual practice or spiritual connection, and is also related to to health. Um, so yes, I mean, I guess these are my thoughts as you were talking, and now I am going to translate what you said and what you Ruth said and what I said.
Okay.
Nos dice Terry que le preguntó a Ruth acerca de la relación sagrada con la comida. Y nos habla también de que también, no nada más vegetales y fruta, también animales, la importancia de comer comida que viene de los animales, de los granos. Nos dice Ruth que la energía de la comida en su forma más pura, que esa es la que nos va a traer nutrición a nuestro cuerpo más que la comida procesada. Todo ese cuidado que llevó traer la comida a nuestro plato. Y nos habla Terry de lo que se llama la comida orgánica, que es la comida más cuidada y que tiene menos químicos. Entonces Terry dice que ella disfruta el saber que la comida tuvo todo un proceso de cuidado, por decirlo así. Y ella dice que cuando ella se sintoniza con lo que Jesús comió, que efectivamente Jesús comía carne y que él comía borrego, por ejemplo. Y también nos hablan de la importancia de cómo en esos tiempos y en algunos países ahora, en estos tiempos, se usa toda la carne se usa y se come. Toda la carne que se usó de ese animal, por decirlo así, si se mata un animal, cualquiera que éste sea, una vaca, un puerco, se usa y se consume todas las partes de ese animal. Y Ruth estuvo viajando en las últimas semanas. Estuvo en varios lugares, como se llama overseas, del otro lado del océano. Y dice que también ellos acostumbran comerse todas las partes del cuerpo de ese animal. Entonces, digamos que nada se desperdicia. Y yo les estaba diciendo que yo me pregunto si hay alguna diferencia entre alimentarnos y consumir, y cuáles son las cualidades que debemos de buscar en la relación de nuestra comida para que nos traiga nutrición y no nos traiga estrés o miedo.
Thank you, Lily. So a thought I had going along with this line of making this a spiritual experience when we eat or sacredness around food, let's say we all did that and we saw it as sacred as it goes into our body, what would that do for people that have allergies? There's people that can't eat certain foods without getting ill. And seafood is one of those foods, which we know was like the really base food that they had available to them. So if we treated the food as if it were a sacred thing going into our body, would that react different inside of our bodies? Would we not have the allergies? We know people have nut allergies. I have a gluten problem because when I eat wheat, it just does not sit well inside of me. So I'm just throwing that out there to see what you all think about that thought and following along this line of the sacredness of what we put into our body.
I see it from an opposite perspective. I think part of the sacred relationship with food is really listening to your body.
Yeah.
And understanding what your body thinks it needs at a particular time. And if it feels, I'm just thinking of like after you've eaten a meal and you're already full and you think, ooh, do I want dessert? And your body's going, not really. But your brain's going, well, this would taste good.
Mm-hmm.
That's not honoring your body.
Right.
So I don't know. To me, the sacredness is not trying to fool my body and think I'm not going to have that allergic reaction
Mhm.
as much as really honing in on what my body's asking for. I don't know.
Okay. I like that thought. Let's let Lily translate and chime in.
Yes. So basically, Ruth, you are saying some kind of consciousness, right? Also, as we eat, like having that consciousness and mindfulness and listen to our body has to say, to
Yeah.
connect with our body in a deeper way and to really see what is best for us to eat and serve at the right in the right time.
Yep. Exactly.
I'm going to translate.
Okay.
Nos está diciendo Terry que hablando de comer como una experiencia espiritual, ella se pregunta qué sucede con las personas que tienen alergias, por ejemplo, alergias a ciertos como nueces o a gluten. Entonces, ella se pregunta que si eso, que si tratamos la comida de una manera sagrada, si nuestro cuerpo responde de una manera diferente. Y Ruth nos dice que ella lo ve, esa relación espiritual y sagrada, la ve como la importancia de escuchar a nuestro cuerpo, la importancia de ver qué es lo que nuestro cuerpo necesita en cierto momento, la importancia de honrar nuestro cuerpo. Por ejemplo, si se nos antoja comer un postre, entonces es escuchar a nuestro cuerpo, preguntar a nuestro cuerpo y sentir si de verdad eso va a ser bueno para nuestro cuerpo en ese momento. Entonces hablamos de alguna manera de la conciencia que tenemos que traer a la hora de comer, por decirlo así. Y ¿cómo se llama? Mindfulness, estar presentes y de veras conectar con nuestro cuerpo.
And Lily, did you have any thoughts about that line of what we're going with the sacredness of food?
Well, I was also thinking yesterday about the importance of connecting with our bodies, the importance to listening to our bodies. And in the past, I didn't know how to connect with my body. but I started having some health issues with my my stomach, and then I started finally listening more to my body, and now I feel a deeper connection. I feel that I know what I should eat and what I shouldn't eat. And it hasn't, like at this time, I don't feel stress so much or fear because it has happened gradually. That, I just listen and I trust that whatever I'm gonna have is gonna be the right thing to have. But I also know there are times that I don't listen to my body and I eat what I'm craving, and then the
Mm.
consequence comes. It usually comes. But yeah, I know that's important to listen to our body, and it doesn't happen. It happens gradually. We just have to pay more attention and just trust to develop that relationship.
Well, when bodies change,
Right.
you might have a gluten issue now, but if you can get your gut healthy, then maybe you can have a little bit now and then, and it doesn't impact you so much.
Yeah. And like Lily was saying, listen to your body. If you ask, oh, if I eat this piece of bread, will I be okay? And see how the body responds, see how it acts. Maybe just, I know for me, it's like that first bite. When I take that bite and I swallow, I pay attention to what's going on. So if my body's going, what are you doing? Then it's like, okay, let me set that aside. So, yeah, I think this is a very important discussion to have about listening to our bodies. And you're right, Lily, it's not something I always did either. I would eat out of just necessity. I'm starving now. I've gone all day without eating, so let me put whatever in my mouth. But listening to the body and being more consciously aware of what you are feeding it, I think that's what Jesus would have us do. What would Jesus do? He'd say, listen to your body.
Yes, Terry, and when I was, tuning into this, and it kind of resonated in overall health. I was also wondering, like, how does the way we feel and connect with life affect how healthy we are?
Mm.
Because it's not only about uh, what we eat and the food that we eat, also mm, connecting with others. For example, this is just an example, like that feeling of belonging, of being in a community. That's just an example of how that also can nourish our body in certain way. Maybe it nourish our spiritual, sorry, our emotional body, and then that goes along with the physical body.
Mhm.
But also, for example, if we bring mindfulness when we eat, before we eat, we really take the time and we are mindful, how much that can also impact our, just being mindful and just doing things slow, how much all the process of eating can affect our digestion, how we rest, if we rest, and how we recover, and all of that. So I am now bringing different aspects to this, that would be not just the food, but the connections that we have with other people, and yeah. Anyway, I am going to
Yeah, would you
I am going
translate that?
estamos hablando de la importancia de poner tiempo para comer, de pensar lo que vamos a comer de alguna manera, de sentarnos, de comer despacio, y de la importancia que esto puede traer también a nuestro cuerpo, hablando de la salud en general, no nada más de la comida, sino de nuestra salud en general. Y cómo a lo mejor el conectar con otras personas, el sentir que pertenecemos a un grupo, cómo eso nos puede ayudar a nuestra cuestión emocional y que eso también ayuda a nuestro cuerpo físico. Y en general es también ver el, cómo nos sentimos y cómo nos conectamos puede afectar, cómo nos conectamos con la vida puede afectar qué tan saludables estamos.
Thank you, Lily. I think this is such a great exploration of our relationship with food, but our relationship with our body. That's what it all comes down to. And when I think about Jesus, I don't think he had a lot of downtime. I don't think he had a lot of time that he was by himself because there was always somebody pulling on his time and demanding of his energy. But my thought was, what about those of us, I'm speaking of myself in this, what about when we're not around other people? Do we carry that same thought process of honoring the food that we're putting in our body, or do we let that be more lenient if we're not in somebody else's company? And a lot of people, they're alone all the time, as Ruth has shared with me. Yeah, there are those who are not around others. So is it harder to develop that spiritual relationship with food? I think it's easier myself. I think it's a lot easier when you're by yourself to really pay attention and be more conscious of everything that you do, and especially food. You know, what do I buy for myself to eat if it's just me? A lot of people have a problem cooking for just one person. It's hard because I've been alone for a good portion of my life, and it is hard to fix a meal for just one person. So is it a matter of what you do anytime that you're doing, like eating or cooking or preparing? Do you do it the same no matter what, if you're alone or if you're with others? I think it just comes down to that, what we're talking about, that relationship, that sacredness, and the conscious awareness of what you're doing. Not just feeding a body, but what are you doing? Looking at it more deeply.
Yes, Terry, when you are talking about how would you eat when you are with others, I know that, when I am with others, and for example, they don't eat what I eat, or they don't, some of them don't have the restrictions that, let's say, I have. Sometimes I know I can feel influence of not eating what I should eat. At the same time, I am thinking that at, at this moment in time in the planet, Mother Earth, well, I think since 2020, there have been a lot of people that have been interested in growing their own food. And there have been a lot of communities built around the world where they are now sharing these sacred times of not just garden growing, and having a big garden. Or for example, if you want to have animals as well, there are people that now they are buying a ranch or a farm, they are buying land and they are having chickens just the way it was before, many years ago. Like people, well, not many, I mean, some of us grew up like that still, but they grow up, they are buying places where they have a lot of land and they have their animals, and now they are eating more consciously from their own garden and their own animals. and there is a lot of focus on uh, eating local. For example, if you don't have your own food in your home, your animals in your garden, also maybe buying local. There is a lot of push, let's say, of buying locally. And then these same communities are being built with that. Let's get together. And it's fun to cook together and to collect things, all the things, and cook together and have fun. And just like I talk about the children, that they were involved in the whole process. I mean, it's a pleasure basically to do everything, including eating.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's what came to my mind when you were talking about eating with others, how sometimes we can be influenced of me, for example, not eating what I should eat because I am with others. But at the same time, it has the other connotation that we can actually look at the positive things that it brings when we are with others, when we are in community, and how beautiful that is.
Mm. Great thought, Lily.
Oh, and I have to translate. I mean, I get to translate now. Um, ok, voy a traducir. Nos está diciendo Terry que en el tiempo de Jesús, él probablemente no tenía mucho tiempo para estar solo y para, por decirlo así, para enfocarse en lo que estamos diciendo nosotros ahorita. Aún así lo hizo. Pero, por ejemplo, nosotros que tenemos más tiempo libre, algunos de nosotros que no tenemos la vida tan ocupada como la tenía Jesús. Entonces, Terry se pregunta, ¿cómo es que somos nosotros cuando estamos alrededor de otros? ¿Tomamos ese tiempo para tener esa presencia a la hora de comer? Y que si es más difícil comer lo que tú quieres comer cuando estás alrededor de otros. Por ejemplo, Terry dice que ella siente que es difícil a veces cuando una persona vive sola y tiene que cocinar para ella sola. Entonces, bueno, eso es lo que se pregunta Terry, que si comemos de la misma manera cuando comemos con otros. Y yo le estaba diciendo de la importancia que yo veo ahora de cómo hay muchas comunidades que están creciendo y están comiendo juntas. No nada más preparan la comida y la hacen juntos, sino ese ritual de comer todos juntos y de disfrutar la comida todos juntos en comunidad. So just now that I say community, so I guess it connects with what I was saying before, Terry and Ruth, what I was saying about the important part of belonging, like when we belong to a community, and if we happen to have that community of people that we can share all these things related to eating and food.
Yes, because we know that Jesus had a community, right? He had the disciples, the followers that were there with him. When you think of having that many people, it's like what's available? What do you provide for nutrition? So going back to the food that was available, we know about fish, we've discussed that, but what are some of the other things that Jesus had available or liked or was sharing that this would be good for your body, but it also would taste good? I mean, we want food to taste good. I don't want to eat food that has no taste to it. So I was wondering about spices. Did they have,
Oh,
did
yeah.
they discover there were spices that you could change the flavor of the food? There's instances that I've read in the Bible that he ate figs. So I think things like fruit trees were plentiful, that they could have not necessarily desserts, but I think that would be the dessert. Like we think of a pie or a cake or something ooey gooey, that our body goes, yum. But I think back then it was simple. It was maybe a fig was dessert. Maybe an apple was dessert. Um, I often wonder, how did they discover that wheat grains could be used to create bread? Because we know they have bread. He talked about many times about breaking bread. That's where that term actually came from, was sitting together and sharing a loaf of bread. So we know there were loaves. I think there were also like flatbreads.
Yeah.
That didn't require a lot of ingredients to put in. It was very simple. So what else, Ruth? What do you think Jesus ate?
Well, when I looked up online, what did Jesus eat? And they've got a whole list of things. So they did talk about the flatbreads made from barley and wheat. They talked about the fish, including fresh and salted fish like tilapia.
Mhm.
And the fruits, they listed grapes, raisins, pomegranates, figs. It says figs were eaten fresh or dried into cakes for energy while traveling. So they knew that,
Mhm.
that your body needed certain things to keep the energy going. Vegetables and legumes, lentils, chickpeas, garlic, onions, cucumbers, cabbages. It says those were common ingredients in thick stews and porridges. Olives and olive oil. It says olives were brined and olive oil was a daily staple used for cooking and dipping bread. Dairy and honey, goat and sheep cheeses, yogurts and wild honey, and then beverages, water and locally fermented diluted wine were standard at meals.
So they,
Ok. Nos está diciendo Terry de qué comida había disponible en los tiempos de Jesús que era buena para el cuerpo y que sabía rica. Entonces ella se pregunta si tenían especias, si usaban especias para cocinar. Ella sabe que comían higos y manzanas, entonces ella se pregunta si eso era algo como un postre para ellos. También ella dice que probablemente comieron granos, que los granos los convertían en pan, lo que se le llama flatbread. Y nos dice Ruth que efectivamente que ellos comían lo que se le llama flatbread, comían uvas, comían pasas, granadas, lentejas, chícharos, pepinos, coliflor, el aceite de oliva, las olivas, miel, y que de tomar tomaban agua y también tomaban vino fermentado.
Thank you, Lily. Ruth has a question that came up in her curiosity.
Well, I was just wondering if there were any foods that brought Jesus joy. Did he have a sweet tooth? I don't know. I kind of think maybe he did.
I think maybe he did. Jesus had a sense of humor. And what I get when I tune into him and the writings about him, he just had this beautiful personality. And I think part of that would be, let's enjoy something together. Let's have an apple, something that's going to have a different taste in your mouth rather than fish or bread.
Right.
Something that's I would say the word delightful to your palate. And I think that is also a metaphor about life. You know, it's not all about just the have-tos, the chores and the mundane, but we need that little bit of sweetness or spice in our life as well, right? And I think that Jesus enjoyed something that really tasted good. That's what I get when I tune in. It's like, yeah. But my other thought is, um, and this was just maybe a silly thought, how did they eat? Like they didn't have tables, right? There
Well,
wasn't like
did. They did have tables
I
because
mean,
remember in the
for that
temple,
big crowd.
Oh well, I don't know. Well, not they probably sat on the floor for 5,000 people, but
Yeah, there were tables in
in the temples
in
when
different
they-
areas, but as they were traveling throughout the area and all moving together, maybe they just spread something on the ground and they had their meal right there, you know, sitting.
on the rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so I think the potters of the time were probably very busy creating the vessel to drink out of, maybe the plates to put the food on. So many thoughts that come up as we have this discussion. I'm loving it.
Yes, Terry, and as you both are talking, I was thinking about the, like what I said yesterday, I guess everything related to not avoiding certain foods or eating certain foods out of a stress or fear. Um, just like, for example, fasting, that fasting is not, I believe, is not for everybody. That's another spiritual connection that you can have, but it's not for everybody. But for example, fasting that um, is like a shift from dependency from physical needs to spiritual grounding. I
Mm.
think that's what the fasting makes that shift, because when you are not thinking of I need to eat or the impulse of wanting to eat, it gives you that time to not being focusing on the physical needs. But for example, it also helps you learn inner focus and connection with God. So it's more about that than all that, I believe, than other things. And for example, how can we understand fasting today and also eating, I would say, not as avoiding certain things or as a restriction, but as a way to become more present, more clear, and more spiritually connected. So I wonder if the way in what Jesus ate, if it actually mattered, if it was something tasty or not, because it was more about that connection with God, and then that allowed him to be more present. Anyway, more present and more spiritually connected. Maybe everything tasted good for him because it was more about that spiritual connection. Not sure, but I am going to translate what you
Okay.
and Ruth said and what I said. Nos está diciendo Terry de qué es lo que pudo haberle traído gozo a Jesús cuando comía, porque sabemos que Jesús tenía sentido del humor. Entonces ella sintoniza que Jesús disfrutaba, pues disfrutaba lo que comía, y que también comía, bueno, no enfocarse tanto en esa restricción de comer ciertas cosas nada más, también disfrutaba de las cosas dulces, por decirlo así. Y entonces nos habla de esa metáfora acerca de la vida, ¿no? Y de cómo también necesitamos comer cosas que sean dulces para tener ese balance. Y lo que yo les estaba comentando es esto de, por ejemplo, de lo que se le llama el ayuno. Sabemos que Jesús ayunaba, y sabemos que el ayuno no es para todas las personas. Algunas personas sí les resuena, a otras no, a unas personas sí les ayuda, a otras no, pero que básicamente es ese aprendizaje de enfocarnos internamente y de conectarnos con Dios cuando comemos o cuando ayunamos. Entonces, cómo podemos entender ayunar en estos días no como una restricción, sino como una manera de estar presentes, claros y de conectarnos espiritualmente? Y esto hablando del ayuno y en general de la comida. And I
Thank you.
remember, sorry, I just remember that fasting. I know that Jesus fasted for 40 days. I don't know more about other times of fasting. I believe he had other times that he did fasting, but it was in those times where I guess he was going to have some kind of a spiritual growth. That was maybe the times that he did the fasting. So he didn't leave fasting. I believe he, like you said, he ate food, he ate animals, he ate vegetables, but he also did fasting when he needed to connect with God more, like deeper. I'm not sure.
Mhm. Yeah. One of the reasons that this whole show came about and came to be was so we could share our thoughts, our inspirations, our curiosity about how Jesus can really relate to us as human beings. And I believe, and we've said it before on here, I believe he lived a fully human life, that he came to have that experience. He came for many reasons, but one of those was so he could understand what it's like to live in this 3D body. So I think the eating is a big part of that. The body has to be fed. It doesn't just survive on air. Well, there are known instances of people that can, but for the majority of us, we have to have some nutrition in our body. So I think because of him being fully human, he can understand cravings, he can understand hunger pains, and that desire to have something that maybe tastes different. You don't want to eat the same thing over and over again. You want to explore and see what else is there. So I love this line of thought that we have done today, and I just glanced up and saw, wow, this time flies when we do this show. It's like we just get into a discussion, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we've been talking for an hour. It's time to wind it up, or wind it down. But I like that thought that, yeah, Jesus knew what it was like to taste food. What was that sensation when we put food in our body, and just have a variety. I don't think we're here just to have vanilla all the time. We're here to have the different flavors, and that keeps us willing, I guess, or interested in having different foods and exploring different foods. One of the things that came about from last week's discussion, Lily, was that we are going to offer something here as we wind up the program, that people can take this throughout your week, not make it just, oh, I'm going to come in and listen to what you have to say. How do we apply this to ourselves throughout the week? What is something we can do to keep this thought going in ourselves? What's an exercise, an awareness that we can have to keep that thought going about our relationship with food, the sacredness of it, honoring it. So I have something in mind, so I would like for Lily to translate before we get too far into too many words. And then let's talk about how we can help others have a deeper understanding as we go from this place today until we meet again next week. Or actually, we won't be meeting next week unless, Lily, you want to do it, because next week I will be involved in an event and I will be tied up at this time.
Okay, Terry. As you were talking about just the beauty of living here in this planet is that we have the opportunity to eat food. And I heard that that's really the beauty of being here, because maybe in other planets they don't get to have this. I don't know. But yes, it's beautiful to be able to eat and to drink, all the things that we have offered here in Mother Earth. So yes, I understand what you are saying. Nos dice Terry que le gusta esta línea de pensamiento que está ocurriendo en este podcast. Ella dice de lo bonito que es estar aquí en la tierra y de comer, de poder comer comida, de poder tomar bebidas, que eso es algo que sucede aquí en la tierra y que es hermoso. Y sí, le estaba yo comentando que sí, que es algo muy único. It's very unique to have this opportunity here on earth. Es una oportunidad muy única de tener la oportunidad de comer y tomar bebidas aquí en la tierra. Y nos dice Terry que la semana que entra ella no va a estar aquí en el programa porque tiene un otro compromiso. Y también nos está diciendo que a la semana pasada hablamos de action steps, o si se le puede llamar como pasos que queremos seguir antes del próximo programa para darle seguimiento un poco a lo que hemos estado platicando.
Thank you, Lily, for translating that. And something really, really weird came up as you were saying other planets, and it just went to this rabbit hole of, oh, was Jesus on other planets? And did he have the same experience, like the food, the entertainment, the rituals? So that's another thought for another day. But my thought as we go into this coming week is that conscious awareness. And I'd mentioned earlier something that I had learned years and years ago, to really honor every bit of what goes into what you're putting into your body, whether it's cooked, pulled off of a tree, pulled out of the ground, but really honor everything that goes into whatever meal you're putting in your body. And so I would encourage everyone this week to, as you sit with each meal that you eat, even if it's a fast food meal, no judgment, what went into putting that together? What was it that had to take place for you to be able to eat that and consume that meal? So that's my thought of how we can move forward with a further understanding of what we're talking about with food and nutrition as it relates to what would Jesus do and how he saw it and how he actually was when he was in the human body in relation to food. So, ladies, any ideas that you have along that line?
Yes,
I think
let
that,
Ruth talk.
go ahead, Lily.
No, you go ahead, Ruth.
I think that God gave us food as a source of enjoyment as well as nutrition. Because if it was really all about nutrition, there would be so few offerings. And so I encourage myself to find the joy in the different foods. So that's what I'm sticking with.
Okay, and maybe a challenge. Try something different this
Sure.
week. Try something different, something that is out of your ordinary of what you would eat, what you would consume, maybe a different cuisine or a different flavor. So I love that.
Yeah.
So be consciously aware of the food and what all went into it and try something different. I love those two ideas. Let's see what Lily comes up with.
Well, I would encourage our audience to nourish ourselves not only with food, but what we said, with gratitude, compassion, and peace and love. I encourage us to learn to listen to the wisdom of our bodies and honor the gift of life with every meal we take and with every meal we share. So, as we go this week, next week, choose one meal each day to eat slowly and with gratitude before taking the first bite. Pause and give thanks for everyone and everything that helped bring that food to your table. And notice how things change in your experience. Notice if you have anything shifting. So this is all related to what we have been talking about bringing mindfulness and gratitude and enjoy, like we have been saying, enjoy what you are eating, because we only maybe happen to have it at this time in this planet. Now that we are here, take the chance.
Okay. Do you want to translate that, Lily?
Yes. Nos dice Terry de que tomemos esa oportunidad, y Ruth también, de disfrutar de lo que comemos, que no nada más lo pensemos como lo que nos debe de nutrir, lo que debe de ser bueno para nuestro cuerpo, que también tomemos este tiempo para disfrutar. Entonces, ellas están pensando en que van a lo mejor intentar un platillo nuevo, una comida nueva. Van a traer esa variedad a su mesa para ver qué sucede si comen algo nuevo y algo diferente. Entonces recordemos esto de disfrutar, y si tienen la oportunidad de tomar tiempo, de sentarse, de tener una pausa, de agradecer por la comida, de las personas que trajeron esa comida que fueron envueltas, involucradas en traer esa mesa, ese platillo a su mesa, y vean si tienen algún tipo de experiencia diferente con hacer las cosas a lo mejor de una manera más consciente a la hora de comer.
Thank you, Lily. I appreciate you so much. And Ruth, what a delight to have you add into this conversation today and this topic. So those of you that are listening, I really appreciate that you are interested in this as well. Yeah, I've always had a huge curiosity about the life that Jesus led. And especially since we only know a small portion of what that life was like. I think this has been a really great look at this part of that human experience. As I said, I'm not available next week, and neither is Ruth, because she's going to be doing the event with me. So Lily, if you would like, we could just take the break for next week, or we can ask Gracie to join you, whichever one you prefer.
We can ask Gracie and to see if she's available, and if not, then we just do it in 2 weeks.
Okay. But we will let you all know, whichever the case may be, if there will be a show next Saturday or not. Enjoy your week. Enjoy the things that you do and do it mindfully. Do it with a conscious awareness of what is taking place as you do so. We appreciate you tuning in with us today. We love you so much and have a blessed rest of your day. This is a great way to start our day, to think about, and now I'm thinking about what am I going to eat today? So make it something fun, make it something enjoyable, and make it something really nutritious for the body. I think that's a very important part of having meals and what we're doing. Be consciously aware. So thank you, ladies. I appreciate you so much.
Gracias, Terry. Nos vemos probablemente la próxima semana. A lo mejor estamos aquí. Y si no, nos vemos seguramente en 2 semanas en este podcast de Caminando con Jesús. Y gracias por estar con nosotros. Hasta la próxima.
Bye, everyone.